Hi, I hope you're doing well today. This is the first video I've made for quite some time. Now, if you've subscribed and checked notifications, then you've been getting videos regularly, but that's only because I've prepared some things in advance and have been scheduling them. So thanks for tuning in today, but this is kind of the beginning of something new. So a little bit of background. I don't want to get too personal here, but let me just say I dedicate this episode and the forthcoming ones to folks who are maybe recovering from an injury, people who are returning to playing after a long period of time, any player who has taken a break and needs to get back into shape. One of the students at NEC right now has to have his wisdom teeth removed, all four. And so that will set him back for a long period of time. And so anybody in that kind of situation, I'm dedicating these episodes starting today, which of course I don't know when you're going to watch this, but this is November 4th, I believe, when I'm making this, and going forward. So here's the backstory. I don't want to give you too much of the gory details, but let's suffice it to say I had a severe attack of appendicitis. Passed out, fell, and smashed my face into the floor, and was, fortunately, my wife was home, found me in my blood, and called 911. So the short story is I got into the hospital. I don't remember very much, but I ended up having to stay for a week. And you trumpet players out there know that it's not a good idea to take a week off from playing, but I really didn't have any choice in this case. So I was in the hospital with complications after the surgery and didn't get out until a week later. So then I had to start to figure out, well, can I play? And what's the wise thing to do? So these episodes are aiming, if you've ever been in that situation, or you want to be prepared for being in that situation, should it happen to you, if you're so unfortunate. This is rebuilding. And we're going to get into a little bit more of the mechanics. I don't know if I'll show that all on these videos, but because I want to save that for those of you who are not casual observers, but those of you who are really dedicated to the art and craft of playing the trumpet, which is a considerable challenge, as most of you know. Okay, enough talk. And I'm going to play number 9 in Mr. Ost's, Nathan Ost's 21 Lip Flexibilities for Trumpet Volume 2. So I'm kind of starting here randomly. I think I've done the other ones in this particular book. Now, when I got out of the hospital, I wanted to be able to play this, but I couldn't. What do I mean? Well, I could force it. I could make the notes to come out, but nothing was working properly. And the biggest problem was that I couldn't take more than maybe a 20% breath. So I had no kind of range of motion in my breathing system. So that's the first thing I want to deal with today. Now I'm going to play it and see what I can do, even though it's been a little over a week now, but I'll be on a long road to recovery. But here's the best I can do right now. Because my body is weak and my skills I'm not confident of my skills, I end up trying a little bit hard. So I'm going along with an easy flow in the middle register, and it sounds okay. It doesn't feel okay. So there's two basic things you want to be working on. One is the skill, the grace, the precision, the confidence, the beauty of the internal movements in your body. And there's a lot of detail there. Your tongue, your throat, the position and the coordination of the lips, the jaw, and of course, most important of all, the consistency, and the freedom of the airflow. So the freedom of the airflow is the main thing I was working on. So how can I tell? Well, my body is giving me all kinds of signals, and when you're out of shape or when you're recovering, your body's going to be doing a lot of, I call it colicky baby. So it's kind of like, it just doesn't feel good. And all trumpet players know what that's like because we tend to get it on a regular basis, and most of the time we just ignore it and push through. And sometimes we have to for performing. But whenever you have a chance to kind of regroup, take a step back and rebuild, which is what I'm trying to do now, it's very important to get down into the easiest way of playing. So I'll show you what I would be doing at first and what I was doing a little bit now. I'd be doing something like this. So my lip's not responding, and my natural tendency, and this is the case for most players that I've worked with, is it's not responding, so I just blow a little bit harder. That's very easy to do, especially if you're a trumpet player, you know how to blow. So you start blowing harder, and that's exactly the opposite of what you need to do. What you do need to be allowing to happen is instead of so I use whistling a lot, and I'm not particularly good at it, and I always ask my students, can you whistle? And some of them say yes, and they demonstrate better whistling than I can do. And I say, great, that's a reference. And others say, well, I can't whistle, and I say, practice it. But what are you actually practicing? This is the point. Now I'm actually forcing to try and make myself get the musical result, which is get a good solid whistling tone and connect the notes and try and whistle them in tune. And so I'm physically trying way, way too hard. And that is not where I want to start. I want to start with, it's easy. So I just got rid of as much air as I can take in right now. So in less than a bar and a half or so, I've just dumped about 5.5, 6 liters of air. Why? Because I'm trying to blow as freely as possible. Now, without holding the air back, I'm going to dump it just as freely, but more slowly. So it's kind of like instead of tipping the bucket really fast, I'm just tipping it gradually until I get some flow, and I'm going to leave it right there. Now, there's something really important here. When you whistle, you're making sound, obviously. But you can do what you might think of as a faux whistle. It's kind of a pretend whistle. And I'm going to do it in such a way that I think with my voice mic here, you're going to be able to hear the pitch. Many of you might already do this, but I want to point out something very important about this. Yes, it's great. I got easy airflow. Excellent. That's exactly what I want. And I don't know if you can hear the pitch. Here's the point. If you can hear anything, except the very slightest movement of air, almost silent. See, now you can't hear the... I'm actually creating tension in my mouth, my tongue, my throat, my lips. And that tension creates turbulence in the air, and I start to get the beginning of a whistle. Now, some of you may not be interested in that, but it's quite important because when you play the trumpet, you don't want that kind of turbulence. And most trumpet players have it, because if I were to try and buzz that, I'm going to do that in a moment. Now I have tension. And now I have a strong, free, steady airstream with momentum and follow through all the way to the end of the breath. And this is what Herbert Clark and Claude Gordon and many other great teachers we're trying to get us to do, is just play to the end of the air. So that ended up being the first thing I tried to do. I didn't worry about whether it sounded good. I didn't try to make a smooth connection between the notes, which I normally would be aiming at, a beautiful, fluid, continuous vocal sound. All I did was focus on releasing the air fully and then releasing the air fully with some kind of focus, as if I were blowing out a candle. So when you blow out a candle, you wouldn't go, you go. So that's much closer to what we're going to be doing on the trumpet. Now, if you're used to pinching with your lips, and there's a place for that, I'll talk about that next. I'm creating a tremendous amount of resistance with my lip. So I'm basically plugging the air, and then I'm blowing hard against my lips. And that's not wrong, except that it creates a lot of tension. So I have to kind of push the air harder than I normally would, and I have to work pretty hard with the facial muscles and the lips in order to grip that airstream. And what I want to be doing is something that's more like whistling. Now, I may not be able to get a buzz that way, especially without the mouthpiece. Now I'm doing something that's way closer to what I'm going to be doing on the trumpet. It's still whistling. It's not the same as the trumpet. The posture is a little bit different. So I don't want you to misunderstand. I'm not saying if you whistle into the trumpet. No, that's not going to work very well. But what is similar, and this is what you're trying to get at, is you have to blow a gentle but free, unrestricted airstream. And it has to be steady. And if it's not, then you're going to be trying to squeeze and manipulate with your lips and your throat and your tongue and so forth. The same thing happens on the trumpet. So how do I get where I'm wanting to go? Well, you as the player have to decide, is this easy and how good is it? Okay, now I'm starting to feel that's pretty good air. Now, it's very quiet until, and that's a strong airstream. So I'm actually blowing just like that. And now my lips have gently and skillfully started to touch the airstream, but they don't touch it all the way. They start to touch the airstream, and then the airstream focuses, and that's how you play the trumpet. So I'm going to go back to playing for a while and see if I can do it. And I'm just going to try and concentrate on those things. But I'm going to leave myself time to hear and to feel, am I doing things correctly, or is my body struggling to try and get the result that I was able to get before I went into the hospital? Then I didn't have to think. It was pretty easy. That's better. I have good airflow, but my lips are feeling stupid. They don't know exactly what to do. And so as a result, they're kind of like, they let go and then they try and hold on. And what I want to get is that perfectly steady stream of air. So I've demonstrated this at other times, but what I might do, I guess I can try this now. Okay, I just opened my notebook. I'm taking out the page I'm playing from, right? I'm going to blow the page. So I'm keeping my body, my head, my neck, my chin in good posture, and allowing the airstream to be steady and directional. and then just moving the paper in there so I can observe what is the air doing. So this is a process of discovery. It's not like, well, you know, blow the paper in this way, blow it this much. Yeah, once you get your air going, that's great. And once the lips are stable, kind of gliding on the airstream, being carried by the air, that's the essence of great trumpet playing. That's the case whether you're playing low or high, loud or soft, articulated or sustained. It's always the air is carrying the embouchure, and the embouchure is riding on that airstream. As soon as you start to squeeze it, then you get into trouble, and this is the trouble that all trumpet players have. Beginning brass players of all kinds tend to have it because, for example, a young player might not have the fully developed wind machine that a more physically mature player has, and especially with the low brass, especially tuba, trombone, baritone, you get this in the sound because there's just not enough airflow in order to carry the lips. As soon as the student starts to go, just like, huh, and really release and follow through with that air, now the lips have some wind, and they, just like a flag, they start to flap in the breeze. As soon as they start to squeeze, the air is being choked and being shut down. You can be doing that if you haven't haven't watched the video yet, go look at the one that I did called The Breaks. You can just search that on my channel. And you'll see all the ways that you can screw up the airflow. But what it's good when we're practicing to do is concentrate on what do I want, what I like it to feel like. If we're working perfectly, what would be the result in the sound? What would it look like if I could see the air? See, these are the kind of questions you need to ask yourself. And you need to be very, don't be focused on what you can do. Be focused on, if you already can play and you're recovering like me, I'm focused on, well, I can hear that sound, but I don't want to make it happen. Be focused on allowing it to happen. That's about the best advice I can give you. Now this, like all these lip flexibilities, moves around a lot. So it's different than playing just long tones. So when I started out in my recovery process, I was just playing without the trumpet at all. Then I moved to buzzing, and I buzzed with the lips first. Now this is not going to be good medicine for everybody, but if you have a mature embouchure, and your buzzing formation is similar in terms of your jaw position and your embouchure musculature is similar, is close to where you naturally play the trumpet, then this can be very therapeutic. So I know I'm going off on a lot of different tangents here. That's what I tend to do, but this would be a step for me in that direction. So if I can go. It was a whole week until I could actually take a full breath. And even then it was painful, and it's still painful for me. So when I take that breath, my body's protecting itself, and it tightens up in order to keep me from being able to breathe naturally, because if I do, it causes a little pain, you know, in my abdominal region because of the surgery that I went through. So your body will naturally try and protect itself. When you feel that happening, do something that's more comfortable or easier, or don't do that at all. Trumpet players tend to like to force. They like the aggression and the the willpower that's involved in playing the trumpet. There's nothing wrong with that. You need it, but you don't want to force things to happen. I've mentioned this before, but one of the most important statements, probably the most important statement to me, from Marie Franquin, who was a great teacher at the Paris Conservatory back a long time ago in the 1800s. He said, don't demand the sound. And I thought about that for a long time. In other words, don't insist upon it. Don't force it. Don't make it happen. Don't demand it. Allow it to happen. So that's what I'm trying to do. So I'll go back to the lip buzzing. You notice I'm buzzing an octave lower. That means I'm using a lot of air. Now, when I get into more detail about this, I'm hoping to put together a space for you who want to overcome your trumpet problems, both musical and physical, where you can dig a little bit deeper and find specific things to work on for your practice. I'm giving you some of that now, but I'm going to get into more detail with it when I can talk about buzzing, for example. It's a huge topic, and it's very controversial, as most things having to do with trumpet playing are. There are various disciples, there are various camps, there are various schools of thought, and like the rest of our current world, everything seems to be polarized and criticizing everything else. And what I'm telling you is keep your mind open, learn everything you can from everyone you can, and don't say right or wrong. Say, like the Mandalorian, say, this is the way. This works. I agree. And that's going to serve you very well. So I'll buzz a little bit, try and play this once more, and then I hope that you're itching to go practice, because I am. I've got a lot of work I need to do before I can gradually get back to the place where I can play normally. Buzzing, why would I do that? First of all, it's very different. I can still feel myself trying to control every note. So when I buzz it with just the lips alone, in order to keep the lips in the same position and stable, I have to make sure that there's enough airflow. Now, don't misunderstand. I don't mean I'm not forcing air. I'm going, but when I get the lips close enough together, so they start to vibrate, it takes a tremendous amount of flow in order to maintain the buzz, and that's healthy. And that's the main reason why I do lid buzzing. And I almost always do it the octave lower. You can do it for exercise once your skills are really good. You can build strength using this, but I don't recommend that, especially not initially, because we already tend to be too tight. So even that is way too tight to play the trumpet. It would be no sound at all if I were doing this correctly. Then if I go to the mouthpiece, now again, that register, I'm using a lot of air, and it's starting to feel good, and that's what you want. Just like a huge sigh of relief. And I can start to let that skill come back in again. Now, if I want to go up the octave, I have to be very careful. Because now I'm blowing a lot stronger. In other words, instead of going, I'm going, you might say, I'm blowing the air farther away. And that's the way many teachers and great players explain it. It's like you're not blowing harder, you're blowing freely, you're just blowing farther away. I mentioned before that Arturo Sandoval, when he went into the stadium to practice in Havana, in the soccer stadium, and would play to the other side of the stadium, what he was doing is practicing allowing the sound to go that great long distance that he could see for all that space. And instead of trying to make it happen, instead of demanding that the sound go over there and trying physically harder, he was very appropriately learning how to release that sound. The higher you play, the louder you play. If you play the way Arturo plays and you're successful at it, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Many players do it by force. He's doing it as a perfectly balanced wind machine. Don't get me wrong, your armature doing work, but it's along for the ride. That's the thing to remember. So I'll do one spot in the piece and then let you go practice. This is the second line, and this is where most people are going to have problems. See a little hitch there? Why is it a problem? Because you've been going along with the same interval relationships, your ear hears it, and all of a sudden now you have a bigger interval. So you have a flat 7. That's a much bigger interval, and that takes most people by surprise. If you're playing correctly, it doesn't feel any different. You've heard people say this. You know, James Stamp used to say, interval of an octave shouldn't feel any different than an interval of a second. That's kind of what we're dealing with here. That's very easy to say. Most people don't agree. Why? Because their own experience tells them that's simply not true. It's much harder to, well, what I'm saying is you can figure out how to do it without strain. Does it take a little bit more effort? Well, as Claude Gordon used to say, brass playing is no harder than deep breathing. It's no more difficult than deep breathing. Well, I don't agree with that. I think there are a lot of skills involved, but what he was saying is this easy intake and easy release is the basis of everything that we do. And on the trumpet, most of us tend to force both on the intake and the release. So what do we do in order to practice this? And what I do is I allow my body to get ready to do it with is to get ready to release that flow to the upper note. Now, if your chops aren't ready, or if they feel weak or insecure or uncoordinated, like my chops feel right now, then your body will always tend to try and hold on. It's kind of a panic reflex. And so if that happens, just shrug it off, go back, get comfortable playing the easier intervals, and then wait until you're ready. Another way to practice it is sustain the upper note, especially if it sounds good. That's always a good thing to do. Now I'm pushing the air way too hard. So I know that's not the best place to be. I can do that. I can make it happen. It's not bad. That's what most trumpet players are doing all the time. When it's right, I feel like I'm blowing straight through steady. So I'm not going do-do-dee-do-dee and kicking for that upper note. This is where most of us have problems. So I'm talking about the problems. I want to talk about the solution. Again, that's getting into deeper waters, and obviously I've gone too long today. But I hope that some of you who taste this and know what it is can start to simplify your playing so that you're not combining just kicking or pushing the air harder with doing all the other things correctly. So you're not overplaying, you're not overdriving the air. You're learning how to, as you would say, sing freely with the instrument. The other thing that makes this spot difficult is you also go downward more than the other intervals. Now you're coming from the G all the way down to the C fairly rapidly. So you have another, then you have a major seventh descending. And so these big changes in short periods of time are what make you tight. Your job as you're practicing is recognize when you're getting tight. Just recognize it. Say, oh, I'm doing that again. I don't need to do that. And you can rebuild, re-coordinate, re-educate your playing in such a way that you'd be amazed at what you're able to do and how little effort is required to do it. So this is what all great classical trumpet players learn how to do. Any successful trumpet player is learning how to bring all these elements into balance. What I'm trying to do now at this late stage in my development is to try and unify all these skills into one simple thing. So I'll let you think about that and do your own work. And please come back when you have some more time. But I hope you spend most of your time enjoying your practice. Go do that now, and I'll see you later. Bye-bye.